Ooh, that is just a lot of exhortation to forgive, isn't it? A lot of world religions tell us we should be forgiving. And yet it can be so easy to have a grudge. Can I tell you, one of my grandmothers, she was like a professional grudge holder. She could have gone to the Olympics of holding grudges. Do you know anybody like that? She held grudges for decades. And she was a really nice person. I loved my grandmother. But I watched how this affected her. She got angry. She'd be annoyed. It didn't affect the people whom she was angry at. They were getting on with their lives. A friend of mine once said, you know, if you're driving in your car, and that's a great place to find people to be annoyed at, isn't it, on the road? If you're driving in your car and somebody on the road does something that annoys you, don't let them inside your car with you. Why are you going to let them be there? They've already, if they cut you off, if they've done things, they've already moved on. That person's not thinking about you. And I had to spend a lot of time thinking about that and thinking, wow, how many times have I let another driver in the car with me? Ooh, have you ever done that? Today, we are talking about forgiveness. Now, we've talked about atonement before, and I'm not talking about atonement. Today, I want to talk with you about forgiveness. I just told you a story about holding on to grudges, and we just heard all these readings about forgiving. Why do we forgive? Well, surely it's so that we can feel superior to everyone else and be holier than thou, right? That must be it. That must be the reason. No, this is not the reason. That doesn't do us any good either. But just like in Grudgeville, when we can forgive, it helps us. It helps us to let go of things. When we carry around anger, frustration, grudges, it eats us up on the inside. Has this ever happened to you? I'm just so angry and I can't let it go. I can't let it go. And another thing. Have you ever been having a disagreement with somebody, most likely somebody in the same household or somebody that you work with, and somebody leaves the room and comes back 5, 10, 15 minutes later, a half hour later, and another thing, I'm not done with this yet. That person's been stewing. Maybe, I'm not asking you to raise your hands here, maybe you've been that person. That's a lot of time to spend, all worked up. Now hear me, I am not saying there's nothing in the world to get worked up about. I'm not saying we just let everything go. But it's important to let things go that are over and done, that we can't change, in the sense that if we continue to hold on to them, they can hold us back. They can hold us back. It's not affecting anybody else, it's only affecting us. So we forgive so that we can move on. But what if we can't? What if we can't? Do those situations exist? I just can't get to that. I can never forgive that thing. Well, that is a conundrum, isn't it? What do we do when something is so bad we personally can't forgive the thing? I don't know what that thing is for you. But this is where universalism comes in. If we are truly universalists, and I think that is the much harder side theologically of our roots, if we are truly universalists, then we absolutely believe that no one is beyond redemption, whatever redemption means for you, that everyone is worthy of love, that everyone is worthy of forgiveness. Ooh. If you can't forgive a thing, I wonder if you can forgive the person. What do you need to do to move past the anger that's inside of you? Sometimes we can't forgive because we're not in that place yet. There's no timeline for this. When we're in the moment, that is not the time. When we've just been injured, nobody can tell you, you must forgive. Remember when we were little and our parents said, go and say you're sorry to your brother. Okay, now you have to forgive your sister because she said she was sorry. And you're, no, I'm still angry. There's no timeline. There is no timeline for forgiveness. Sometimes we can't forgive because we're just not ready yet. That's not where we are. But how can we get ready? Well, forgiveness doesn't mean accepting somebody completely back into the fold and saying, oh, it's all forgotten. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is not the same as, I'm going to be a doormat now, you can do whatever you want to me. Yes, you can walk all over me again. That's not what forgiveness means. Forgiveness doesn't mean free rein to continue to hurt me. Forgiveness might mean I forgive you from a distance and I am protecting myself and not putting myself in a position where you can hurt me again. I forgive you for taking advantage of me and trying to scam me over the internet out of lots of money. That's something that any of us with a computer has probably experienced on some level. I forgive you for that. Does not mean, but I'm going to fall for it. It just means I have forgiven you, I have let it go, and you're still blocked. But what if people aren't deserving of forgiveness? That's not the point. We could say that no one is deserving of forgiveness. We could say that. Forgiveness isn't about who deserves it. Forgiveness, again, is about us letting go. Forgiveness is something that is freely given, not something that is earned. That's why a true apology isn't really asking for forgiveness. A true apology is just saying, I'm really sorry. That's another sermon. We forgive for ourselves, not for others. It doesn't matter if somebody deserves it or not. We do it for ourselves. Now, we also don't forgive in the midst of a wrong. This is not the time to forgive Vladimir Putin. I'm using an obvious example here. We don't forgive while abuse is still happening. We don't use forgiveness as a weapon. We don't force others into forgiveness because, again, there is no timeline. Don't use forgiveness as a weapon against yourself either. If you're not in a place to be able to forgive, don't beat yourself up about it. You're not in the place yet. The time hasn't come. And then what? What comes next? How do we move forward after we forgive? Well, sometimes moving forward means leaving it alone. We've forgiven, we've learned, we're wiser, that chapter is closed, we move on and we move away. Sometimes forgiveness means calling back into covenant, moving forward together. When we're in covenant with one another, that's often, usually, what that means. How is this hopeful? We're talking about hope these days. And we're going to move into healing, and this is sort of a bridge. Well, it's hopeful because while we're in that place of holding a grudge and being angry and eating ourselves up from the inside, we can't find a place to hope. It's really hard to do that. But when we can forgive, when we can say to someone, I forgive you, or when we can just say it to ourselves, thinking of that person. We don't have to forgive in person or on the phone. We don't have to write a letter. We can just tell ourselves, I forgive that person. When we can do that and get on with our own lives, then we can move into a place of hope. It helps us to be more resilient. When we have hope, we can move into a place of healing. It helps us to move along. In the Christian tradition, whenever communion is celebrated, there's a prayer of confession, a congregational prayer of confession, a corporate prayer that everybody says together. And then at the end, the congregation reconciles itself to one another. They forgive each other for what, who knows what, you're forgiven for all the sins we've just confessed together, whether you feel that you've done it or not. But that's an important thing, to be able to say, you are forgiven. It's nice to be forgiven. And it feels good to let things go and to forgive. So we're going to practice that a little later today. And I'm going to say to all of you, for things done and not done, and who knows, and maybe for nothing, but just to practice, you are forgiven. And if you'd like to say back to me, you are forgiven, feel free. We are forgiven. Let us let it go. Namaste.